Hello, this is Tom Brevoort. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, Loonies, welcome back. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. I am your host, the High Priest of Khonshu Rey, and with me tonight I have a special guest, no stranger to the show. He featured last in episode 142, so we're in 151 now, so it's been a long time between drinks. Josh Geronimo Johnson. Josh, welcome. How are you going?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. How's it going?
Yeah, good. It's good to have you. And again, a big thank you for the early morning start for you. But, might I say, for those that can see the video, you're looking quite refreshed for someone waking up at, about 6:30 in the morning? So...
I just been naturally getting up even before 5 o'clock today, just by myself, so...
That's fantastic. That's good.
Most of the damn cats that get me up early.
Yes. Oh, man. The last few weeks, our cats have been crying about 2 o'clock in the morning, scratching at our door. So the last few nights, I've been putting Flip's one of our cats, just been chucking him in the bathroom at the other end of the house, just for those extra few hours in the morning to actually give us a little bit of respite. But yeah, I totally know what you mean. The cats are more troublesome than like a 2-year-old. So yeah, you and I both have it. But Loonies, thank you for joining us. This is the other side of the big 150 that we had last week. Had a great special guest there, Tom Brevoort. It was so fun to speak to him, as well as special guests, co-hosts Phil and Saren from the collective. So this is, I like to say, it's a new era. We've got a few new segments, not so much tonight. Tonight we have it will be a waxing crescent. So if you look up into the moon, into the night sky, you will notice it is a waxing crescent, and that will give us a LUNAR-PICK modern run review. And Josh and I will be looking at Moon Knight Volume 5, Issue 7. It's part 1 of Midnight Sun. It's called The Woodwork. Josh, this will be a little different from your usual stints on the show, because I like to call you the custodian for the older, the 80s era for Moon Knight, but this is a bit more of a modern one for you.
Yeah, I think the only other one that I've been on that's been made like in the time that I've been alive has been I think we did the first issue of From the Dead, but all the other ones have been from like the 80s or 90s.
Yeah. So you've got a huge handle on the 80s and 90s stuff. It'll be really good to get your thoughts on more of a modern take, because this is very different from the likes of even the Mark Spector Moon Knight, which you did last, I believe, which was, what was it, 49, something like that, 48, 49, or maybe it was 50.
I was 38.
38.
39 and 40.
39, 40 with Dr. Doom. So very 90s. But yeah, this will be good. It's the Charlie Huston, David Finch run. Before we go on any further, as usual, I'd like to thank the patroonies such as Josh himself for throwing some support over for the show. It's a really great gesture, and of course, just you loonies listening is a great thing, and we very much appreciate it. So we have the patroonies: Dustin, Wayne, Justin, Joey, Josh on the show now, James, Russell, and Anthony. Thank you so much, guys. You're doing really good. Great stuff. You're allowing us to kind of spread our wings. Also, a couple of sponsors: Hello Headphones, empowering gamers to play at their best. A big thank you to them. And also sponsors Dreamland Comics from Illinois, the superhero superstore. Josh, have you... Do you venture to... again, my geography for US is really terrible. Do you ever venture to Illinois? Is that somewhere near you? No?
It's a couple states away out west, but the furthest I've ever gone has been to Ohio. And
Okay.
Illinois is a couple of states away from there, but
Okay.
I've never gone very far west.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe these sponsors can entice you, Josh. We'll give them a shout out at the end of the show. Really good incentives, and a big thanks for them for being sponsors. Anyway, so as I mentioned before, we get into the show, the modern run with Charlie Huston and David Finch. It's really actually this is very cool, Josh, as well. It's fortuitous. This is an issue that sees the return of Jeff Wilde, and I believe you and I have at least we both have had discussions on Midnight. He's quite a classic character. This, I believe, is the latest and the last that we'll hear from him, right?
Like 99% sure.
Yeah. Unless he's popped up somewhere, but he. So this is good. It'll be good to a nice little continuing thread with you, Josh. But before any of that, a little bit of idle chat. Like to give some loonies, some recommendations and reads. Anything on your pull list or your reading at the moment that you'd like to maybe mention to loonies to pick up?
Well, I've been reading a couple things because, like I've mentioned before, my brain goes on this weird schedule when it comes to the stuff that I'm into at certain times of the year. So since the summertime is when I'm really big into like my history and war stuff, so I've been reading some war-related Marvel stuff. So a couple weeks ago, I read one of my Invaders classic trade paperbacks that collected the last few issues of the initial Invaders run.
Oh, I think I remember you mentioning that in the Epic Collection group, right? Yeah.
Yep. So I read that, and it also collected. They had a 4-issue miniseries in the '90s of that too. So like, there's only like 5 issues of the like the '70s run, and then they crammed those other 4 issues in. So I read that, and it was okay. It was how I'm trying to describe it. I mean, it is funny, but it's like, oh yeah, it's like World War II, but it's like if superheroes fought in it also, and obviously that's what it is. But and in contrast to that, I'm also reading my Sergeant Fury and Italian Commandos. That Essential. I've been reading that too, so it's a nice little contrast between superpowered and ridiculously costumed to sort of goofy but still, real-ish war stuff, and that's pretty fun. And in contrast to some of the other like '60s Marvel stuff that I've read recently, like the Daredevil epic that we talked about last time on, like this stuff is Sergeant Fury is a lot easier to read in my opinion.
Oh, that Daredevil is pretty hard in the '60s, right? It's small doses, really. Yeah.
Yeah, but this one, it's like I'm still taking me a while just because it has so much dialogue. It's just the '60s, but I'm still going through it pretty quickly. And I don't know, maybe it's just because when it comes to stuff like Daredevil and superheroes, you have to set up like your ridiculous villain and his motivation, whatever. Yeah. Whereas with Sergeant Fury, it's who the antagonist is? Nazis.
Yeah.
And that just writes itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest as well, because I've been... so Josh and I, we do like our collected editions and epics and stuff. I must say that, because I recently read, I think, the first volume of Captain America, the Epic Collection, Captain America Lives Again, and that was in the '60s. I found that a lot easier to read than Daredevil. I still think Daredevil's a little... I don't know, it's really... I don't know, I guess they were trying to sell him, like really his character, whereas Captain America had that history as well. And I also read not the first volume, I think it's volume 4 of Thor, the Epic Collection. And I think that was around the '60s, if not like towards the late '60s. And again, I found that that was Kirby and Lee, and I found that really a really fun read. But I guess because it's so over the top, cosmic and gods and stuff, it kind of lessens the blow of the wordiness and stuff. Whereas Daredevil's, he's literally at that stage, he's just a guy really in a suit. He's not even ninja status at that stage. He's just like a swashbuckling kind of fighter. So It's really hard, I think, in that era to make him kind of really interesting, and it gets very very wordy as well. So, cool. I mean, look, I as mentioned as well, I've been following some epic collections. I've just finished a collection of Ghost Rider by Daniel Way, 2006. So around the same time as the comic that we're going to be reviewing now. I read his his series, which was about 19 issues. Very easy. If you're talking about Daredevil and small doses, I read the Ghost Rider collection in about 2 days. It was there's a lot of nice visuals, less dialogue. It was a lot of fun. I thought that was good. Also, I'm cracking into Thor again, so looking at Thor 383 to 400, that's in the Epic Collection. War of the Pantheons, that's around 1987. That's one of my favourites. It's like Ron Franz art, Tom DeFalco, I think, on writing duties. I'm going to give a go to Star Wars. I'm not really a Star Wars reader. I'm just like I like the movies. I'm not like a huge fan of Star Wars, but I thought I'd give the comics a go. So the early Dark Horse comics, The Old Republic, apparently is pretty good, so I'm going to give that one a go. I've taken out my old floppies for Daredevil Last Rites. It's a 90s thing, leading up to 300. I know there's an Epic Collection coming out around December, I think, that will collect that, but I just want to reread it anyway. There's also, let me see, sorry, I've just flipped my... Also, a few digitals. This is just a little bit of homework because jumping on some other shows and such. Judge Dredd versus Predator. I don't know if you ever like that sort of stuff, Josh. I'm really... really,
no, I've never seen anything regarding either of those two.
You haven't seen any Predator? Oh, you have got to see the 1987 Arnie Schwarzenegger movie. Seriously, it's one of my favorites. It's really cool. Masters of the Universe, I'm going for that, by James Robinson. It's a DC release. That was that looks pretty good. They just released an omnibus for that, but I don't know. I just thought that would be pretty cool. And All-Star Superman as well. That's always fun to read. I'm doing that on the other podcast, Last Sons of Krypton. So plenty of reading between the two of us, Loonies. Go check it out for sure. All of these will be in the show notes in case you happen to be interested in any of them. Are you picking up any current reads? I mean, they're starting to trickle out now, aren't they? Are you looking?
My store only just opened last week, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't gotten to it yet. Because I know I have a couple. So I have a couple issues there. The only current thing I picked up was the Avengers 33,
mm-hmm.
which because that week that was what they came out with 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We happened to be making our daily trip out to Pittsburgh that day, and out there things are a little bit better. So the weekend, like the day we went out there, was the day everything opened back up, which worked out good. So I went to this comic book store there and I got that one.
Yeah.
But that's the only new thing I've read so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, incidentally, what did you think of that issue?
A lot of setup. I mean, it's a lot of cool stuff. I'm sure it'll all make sense once we read more.
Mm-hmm.
But at first, it's like, oh, he's sort of just going after everybody for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I really liked him and Iron Fist going at it.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that design too, where he just had just the full mask on, but he had like the stuff wrapped around his arms.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was a pretty cool design.
It was a little bit of a nod to, I don't know, I thought the mummies and Egyptian, but also martial arts as well. So he's got the bandages. That's really cool. It certainly does hit the ground running. We'll get to our comic book review tonight, but again, I thought setup issue here, I think affected the experience for me. So what we're going to be reading tonight, because it is very much a setup issue as well. But I found the Avengers 33 as a setup because it hit the ground running. There's just so much action. It's just so much in your face. I don't know. I just really enjoyed that ride. But anyway, that's pretty cool. Speaking of Avengers, so for a couple of white noise, we've just got a couple of bits of news here, Josh. nothing too much to discuss, only that the September solicitations for Marvel were released, and amongst a whole load of new comics, which I'm sure everyone's very happy for, the cover for Avengers 36 was released. And did you see this, Josh? It had Moon Knight fighting Black Panther.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty cool. And that's always interesting like matchup, but I never really would have thought of. But it also just reminded me of an episode we did like a year and a half ago, where there was a rumor that Moon Knight's gonna appear in Black Panther 2 or something like that, and it just made me think of that.
Yeah, actually, I forgot about that rumor totally. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, I like the that was one of the. I guess for those that have read 33, you'd know that Moon Knight's after the Avengers 1 million BC, and he grabs a few of them like Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, but Black Panther was one that he hasn't been able to overcome because T'Challa was saying, the magic is in my blood. For some reason, he can't extract it, compared to Danny Rand, who I believe I don't know how magic works, Josh. There's a particular science to it, but apparently you can't get T'Challa's. So it'll be very interesting to see how he takes on T'Challa. If he can beat Thor, man, I don't think he'll have any problem with T'Challa, but whether or not he's able to get his power, we don't know. He still is looking for the Phoenix Force and Starbrand as well, so he hasn't got the whole kind of set yet. I
feel like such an idiot. I didn't put any of that together until you just mentioned it, that everyone he went after was tied into the Avengers 1 million BC or whatever. Yeah, because I'm so out of the Avengers loop.
Yeah,
because I dropped it after like 10 issues or something like that. I'm so out of it. I completely forgot about that until you just mentioned it. I feel like such an idiot.
Look, yeah, you wouldn't know. I mean, if you aren't an Avengers reader, you wouldn't know much about the million BC anyway. So yeah, understandable that it wouldn't cross your mind because, So we'll see. 36 looks pretty cool. I guess the 34 comes out, I think, mid-July. So we've got 3 weeks or so till that comes out, which we'll review, of course. The second bit of news, it's rumor though, and I got a little tap on the shoulder here from Phil again, Drop King Phil. He sent me this. Apparently, Marvel are casting a deaf Native American hero for the Disney Plus series, and number one, there is a high potential, if this is true, that it could be linked to Moon Knight, because everyone seems to be pointing their fingers to Echo. And we all know that she's had a little bit of a stint in the Brian Michael Bendis run. She's typically in the Daredevil world, but she can fit easily in the Moon Knight world, more so than Miss Marvel or She-Hulk. So if this is true, maybe this could be the first casting we get for Moon Knight, Josh.
Yeah, I think that would be the one that make the most sense. I don't really know any other deaf normal heroes except that. I mean, I was trying to pick any other, like, even Native American heroes or characters, and there's only like a couple, but none of them fit the deaf mold. So yeah, I guess Echo would be the obvious assumption.
The only ones I can think of, Hawkeye, but he's not Native American. He's deaf, and Native American was Puma from Spider-Man, Thomas Fireheart, and Red Wolf. The only two ones I read. Like Shaman and Talisman from Alpha Flight as well, I think. So there are a few, but yeah, they're not deaf. So.
Yeah, the only other one I know of is what's his? I think his name is Portal. I think.
Okay.
He appeared in the Darkhawk series.
Oh, nice.
In the 90s, and he's the only other one I can think of.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well,
but again, he's not deaf, I don't think.
No. So I mean, it just makes sense if this rumor is true. Won't validate it or anything on this show. We're just stating that this is the rumor that we've come across. But it would be pretty cool if it is Echo. I like Echo. I mean, her character's pretty cool. she has photographic memory reflexes, similar to Taskmaster. So she can actually, in the Daredevil run, she watches, a pianist, and then she kind of actually emulates his concert piano playing, fighting abilities, all that sort of stuff. So it'll make it pretty cool. What did you think of her take in the Brian Michael Bendis run?
I got to be honest, I've never read that run at all.
Oh.
No, I have not. I've listened to your episodes about it, but there's a difference between hearing someone talk about it and reading it yourself.
Absolutely.
So I have no opinions or knowledge of any of it.
I'd highly recommend. I mean, you and I again know how polarizing the Bendis run is. It's worth a read, and he does echo well because hey, he created her, so he knows exactly how she's meant to be portrayed. So there you go. Only a couple of bits of news there, loonies, but I don't know, something to maybe whet your appetite of what might be, what's coming up ahead. But why don't we, Josh, take a quick break, and then we can focus on our LUNAR-PICK modern run review. All right, Loony, so we'll be right back after this quick break. A couple of messages from our fellow collectives, and see you on the other side.
Hey everyone, this is Brian, the host of Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast. And since 2017, Inner Demons has been the best place on the web for news, reviews, and regular discussion with our listeners about Marvel's Spirit of Vengeance, Ghost Rider. You can find us on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and many other podcast catchers, as well as on Twitter @InnerDemonsGR. Remember, listening to your inner demons is not always a bad thing. Ride on.
I am Connor from the House of L.
And I am Ray from the House of Zod.
We are two of the many survivors of Krypton's destruction, and we have made our home in Australia, and dare I say, have become Australians, for better or worse. But we have also decided to read Superman comics, read Superman books, watch Superman shows, cartoons, movies, basically everything Superman, and from an Australian perspective as well. Whether you're a seasoned fan, like me,
or whether you are coming in fresh, wide-eyed and wanting to learn more like me, then this podcast is for you. Join us for our bi-weekly adventures available on all good podcast catchers.
So just search for Last Sons of Krypton, a Superman podcast. We'll be coming to you from Australia or some cosmic dimension, wherever we are that week.
Up, and away!
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 151. I'm joined by Josh Geronimo Johnson, and we are looking at a LUNAR-PICK modern run review. As mentioned, it's a waxing crescent up in the sky, so, take your cameras out, take a photo. I'm not lying. It's true. And anyway, we'll be looking at Moon Knight Volume 5, Issue 7. It is a new arc for Charlie Huston and David Finch. It's Midnight Sun, Part 1, subtitled The Woodwork. And it's available as a floppy or a trade paperback. Now, the trade paperbacks and the hardcovers are a little hard to come by these days. I think they're out of print, so you might have to look at third-party sellers. But it did come out as a trade paperback or as a hardcover edition. For the Patroonies, probably see it behind me. I've got just one of the hard. They came with a couple of hardcovers. I don't know why, but I've got that one over there. Also, easily accessible through Marvel Unlimited, or if you want to buy a digital version, on Comixology. This was published in January 2007. And writer Charlie Huston, penciler David Finch, inkers Danny Miki with Crimelab Studios, colorist Frank D'Armata, letterer Joe Caramagna, editor Cory Sedlmeier and Axel Alonso. Now, for listeners, first-time listeners, so Josh and I will go through a synopsis or a bare bones, which gives you a summary of the issue, just in case you haven't got it. And then that will be followed by, we'll kind of break it down, have an informal discussion on writing, art, themes, characterizations, and references to any run, and we'll cap it off with a moon rating out of 10. So also for the benefit of the patroonies on video, which they have exclusive access to, we'll be throwing up the panels and the pages for you to refer to as we discuss it. So, new feature. I'm very happy. Took me a long time to find all this stuff, and then it was actually, when you go around and round the clock, Josh, I went to all these different sites trying to find it, programs that you have to pay for. Then I found out that Skype actually has a recording capability. It's like, it's that easy now. So it's, the most simple thing, and it's the best. So, patroonies, I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, so let's get to the bare bones. This is courtesy of Wiki. Thank you, Wiki. Josh, do you want to take it away?
All right. So, Moon Knight goes out on a standard night's patrol. Spider-Man conveniently shows up just as Moon Knight apprehends a petty criminal. Spidey is shocked to see Moon Knight brutalizing the thug and tries to calm him down. Moon Knight dismisses him, however, and quickly leaves the scene. Inside of his personal limo, Mark Spector is still haunted by images of Bushman. The dead mercenary appears to be sitting next to Mark, whimsically chatting to him as Sangles drives Mark back to his estate. Elsewhere, a mysterious, stark-clad stranger converses with a woman in shadowy underground lair. The stranger speaks at length about gaining revenge against someone, and drops an alarm clock down into the depths of the cavern. The clock lands on a pile of similar broken timepieces, all of which are set for the same time, midnight.
Later, after a restless and painful night's sleep, Mark drives out to meet with Frenchie. He wants Frenchie to work with him again as mechanic and pilot of the Mooncopter. Frenchie has no interest in returning to his old lifestyle. The two men go to Jenna's diner, but Jenna is not happy to see Mark. She still blames him for the death of her son. Mark speaks with Jenna's surviving son, who served as a pilot in Iraq. Frenchie brings Mark back into the mansion and shows him a newspaper clipping. The headline reads, "Clock Killer Claims Third." Frenchie tells Mark to find Jeffrey Wilde, the cyborg once known as Midnight. When Mark steps into his den, he finds Steve Rogers, the renegade hero known as Captain America, waiting for him. Yeah, so a pretty involved first part to this arc. Before we get into any of it, Josh, just overall, what did you make of this first issue?
Well, like I said before, it's a very set up issue. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, not very much happens. But I mean, overall, I thought it was okay. Mm-hmm. As I was reading this, it sort of jogged my memories of like the rest of like this little arc, and then I kind of remember that I didn't really like it that much.
Oh, okay.
But obviously it sees the return of Midnight, and more stuff we'll get into. But I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great, but it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, this first issue very much, and it's really hard to make, I guess, set up issues really interesting. This was, again, I love the art. I thought that was great. We starting to get ties in, references to Civil War, which is a massive thing happening around at the moment. So we got Spider-Man, and we have Captain America at the end. As you say, nothing much really happens. It's really kind of Mark just touching base again with his support network, and trying to get the band back together, for want of a better word. better phrase. But yeah, it's I thought there were a couple of interesting points other than the main thread. So I've got down here the plot. So basically the main thing is Mark. So for those who have read the bottom, he had reached the bottom. He had distanced all his friends and stuff, and now it's about him trying to reconnect with them. I think that's the essence of this. And if he goes to Frenchie first, because as much of a lone wolf as Moon Knight is, he really still needs the likes of Frenchie to drive the mooncopter. You know, one of the big things for Moon Knight is to swing down on that rope ladder and have Frenchie come in and pick him up or whenever, or drop him off places. He can't do that at the moment. He's only just come back on board. He's got no wheels and no mode of transport. And so there's that. There's also, I guess, him just really trying to reconnect, because we saw earlier on in the bottom arc, the friction between him and Frenchie as well. So there's a little bit, there's more of a patching up of that friendship, and surprisingly as well, it's a little obscure, a little vague, but after all that, Frenchie still kind of decides to help him, you know, during this issue. He kind of concedes and says, you know, well, you know, if I'm back, then what you want me to fix the mooncopter? You want me to pilot it? You know, that sort of thing. So he doesn't say no. He actually gets into the limousine with Mark, and you know, he's kind of wanting to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I found the Frenchie stuff quite interesting as well. I found the stuff with Jenna again quite interesting, because we get a big thing here of Ricky is actually dead, which is a big thing, because I don't think he's been killed in any of the other volumes which came before this.
No, but I think that's a very sort of reactionary thing, at the time, what's going on, in real life, and and just okay, well, we'll make him, because even Jenna does point out that, oh, you filled his head with all these stories of war and battle and all this stuff, and then he got interested in it, and then he went and signed up, and then he got killed because of it, which is probably a thing that happens a lot in real life over the course of human history, and then that just happened to be the Iraq conflict that was going on just happened to be what was going on at the time.
I mean, there's very much, and what Huston does with that, of course, is he causes that friction and the breakup between Mark and Jenna. That's the impetus for Jenna to actually hate Mark, because he hasn't actually, after that, and after in Jenna's narrative in her head, it was Mark that was the one that kind of, as you mentioned, kind of coaxed Ricky into that world, and then he pursued it. Then when he died, she didn't hear anything from him at all, from Mark. So there's a sense of abandonment there from Jenna, and she's very heated and upset at him, even to the point where there's that little bit where Frenchie says to Mark, "Don't call me Frenchie." And Mark goes, "Well, Jenna called you Frenchie." He goes, "Yeah, she can do whatever she wants because she has a right to, but not you, you know?"
Right.
Yeah, so, but yeah, and I don't know, what did you think of Frenchie's almost about face, I reckon? Because he was so angry in the first arc. Maybe he's just sitting down?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe, I guess what we saw in that first arc was sort of just his initial reaction or whatever, because that happens where if you come across someone who did you wrong, or a friend maybe who did you wrong or something like that, and you're real pissed off right away, but then after time you sort of get over it, and obviously Frenchie, he says that he's not going to fully get back into being Mark's sidekick, but he'll at least help him get started. He'll go okay, I'll come over and I'll make sure the mooncopter at least starts, and I'm not going to go out there in the field with you, but I'll give you somebody, I'll lead you to somebody who will. Yeah, and that's why he goes and recruits Ray to be to be the new pilot, because not only Ricky, but I guess Ricky and Ray both joined in the military. Yeah. Which, to me, actually, it does, if you put yourself in their kind of shoes, it's as kids they were, on the street there, but then they're helping out getting information and even getting into fights or whatever, helping out Moon Knight, take on bad guys. And then as they get older, like, oh, well, we can go do this. Like, this will be like our careers. We'll go into the military, and that's basically what we'll do. So it makes sense to have them come to do that. And I have somebody down here that Rey is sending to be more involved with Mark and being like his pilot and stuff. It seems like a logical character progression because that's what they were when they were younger too. So I like that whole thing.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. I think that works as well. And again, it makes sense with Ricky. If it wasn't Ricky, it was going to be Rey that had more of an involved role with Mark, I think, eventually. What does kind of bug me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, as well, because the last we saw of Frenchie in that first arc, he was beaten with his own leg, right, rather viciously, and he was and not reading too much into it, but then if you do read that first arc and straight into this, Frenchie would even, I'd think, be even angrier at Mark for being drawn back into this world, because he wants to set up that restaurant with his partner. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He says it over here as well. I don't want anything to do with that life. I've been to hospital too many times, referring not only, I guess, to Mark, but to himself. But maybe he's just a really forgiving guy, because that's the last we saw of him in that first arc. He was quite, he was accosted, beaten cruelly, and as part of the committee's and the profile's plan.
Yeah, honestly, it's been so long since I've read the bottom. Like, really, kind of completely forgot about that whole bit. I don't know. Maybe it's just a super forgiving guy. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, as well, just sticking with Jenna and jumping to, like, I guess, characterizations in here, I got the sense that there's nothing being really defined of how Jenna's meant to be portrayed, but she comes across here as a little older. And I guess with that, and with Ricky and Rey being older as well, we're looking at a period now where even Mark, and I think that was discussed by the profile early on as well, how he's a has-been. So this is like not Moon Knight in his prime. So what Huston does is put Moon Knight in an era where he's really grizzled and worn, and so. I think you see that with Jenna, because she comes, she just looks like a little bit more advanced in age. It comes across. It struck me, obviously, because I'm always thinking of the Sienkiewicz run, and she's kind of, I don't know, would be in her early 40s or something like that. She definitely looks older in this in this iteration.
Oh yeah, I noticed that too, and they even make her seem a little bit stockier. And like her hair, like I can't tell if there's gray intentionally in her hair or if that's just the shadow. But yeah, I'm used to her looking younger and a little slimmer, because then that's how she looks in the Lemire run too.
Lemire run as well,
when they're in the asylum, if that's where they actually are. But they make her like younger and slimmer, and but I assume like if we would put like a year like on this. Like the year like in Moon Knight's career, like it would have to be after like, I don't know, maybe like close to 10 years of him doing that. It's hard, obviously, with the Marvel sliding time scale. It's hard to put a time or year on anything, really.
Absolutely.
Like even like the conflict that Ricky and Rey get involved in, like at the time, it's obvious that that's the Iraq War, but like now again because this came out 15 years ago, if you would still take this as this is sort of after being 10 years, you have to sort of update it, and like I guess what they've done in comics now is they've created like a fake like decades long war to throw anybody who has that in their like in like their background. Yeah. Like characters like the Punisher and even like Moon Knight. And like all of them, like it's called like this Cyan Kong War or something like that. So like now like this will like that war now, if this was being like retcon, like that's what it would be.
And that was correct me if I'm wrong as well, that was listed in the Mark Waid's History of the Marvel Universe, which was released not that long ago. That was a huge decision by Marvel to do this thing. I don't really like it. I mean, I'm happy for things to be retconned more and more, you know, like even with so Iron Man, and it being Afghanistan or before Vietnam and stuff. But to create, I don't know. Well, what do you think? Having a fake decade-long war to capture everything.
I like it because eventually, like even now, like let's say for the Punisher, for example, the Punisher has always had his origin set in Vietnam.
Yeah.
But obviously, as time goes on, and if you're going with aging, that's not going to work. I mean, they did it with the Punisher Max, which that's its own sort of thing, and that works good. But you can't have like eventually that'll run out. Like the problem, problem that people brought up now is like, for example, for Magneto. Magneto's origin is set in the Holocaust.
Yeah. Yes.
As time goes on, that's 80 years ago now.
Yes. Yeah.
So even if he was 10 when that happened, he'd technically be 90. Now you can say they're mutants, and he's a mutant. He has stuff. It slows down his aging. Okay. But eventually, it's going to get to the point where it's been 100 years ago, and something's going to have to something's going to have to change with it.
Yeah.
Whereas if they go and have this, we had this decades-long war, which is really only used just to fill out because when all this is written, it was initially meant to be in either World War II and then either Korea or then Vietnam, but since we haven't really had any big conflicts like that, because I guess we have, but not to the degree where it has the same effects, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, again, with the Punisher, it's like Vietnam has some horrible shit happening to it. Not saying that all wars don't, but that one, there's a big difference between what happened there and, say, the Gulf War, like the first one, because like as time went on, like in the late 90s, that's what it ended up becoming.
Yeah.
So I like it, and plus because with me sort of being interested in that kind of stuff, I'd like to be like, okay, so what's the whole deal with this whole war? Why is it going on for decades? Yeah. What is it? Like, is it like, I don't know, like, so it is interesting to me.
Absolutely, yeah, that would be a fun thing to kind of dive into, especially as you say, if you're into that kind of genre, and it's and I can see it because then you have to. You kind of try and see how it all fits within all the characters, but I don't know. Anyway, it's a good. There's a definitely heavy military kind of influence here from Ricky and Ray and Mark, and I don't know, just quite interesting. Now, I'm going to move back here, so visuals... Oh, and again, sorry, just we're talking about the ages and all that. Just, again, so over here, these couple of pages where you do see Frenchie. He does look really old. I've got to say, Mark Spector's kind of like Paul Rudd. He just evergreen. He doesn't change. He still kind of looks youngish. But Frenchie's... it looks a lot older as well. A lot older than Mark, even. Which may have been the case earlier on. But, Mark's holding up well for his age.
Maybe not with all the crap that's going on in his face.
No, true.
His bruises all over, which I didn't write this in the art thing, but I hate that little... I'm assuming it's supposed to be like a bruise, but it's like a red patch.
The red patch, yeah. It looks like a clown.
Yeah, it's like, I was gonna say it looks like a Raggedy Ann doll. Like, if it didn't have like the little, like, I don't know if they're supposed to be stitches or whatnot, but it looks like it's just like sewn on it. It looks horrible. I hate it. It's so annoying.
That could have been done a lot better, I think, as well. And not only from David Finch's art, but maybe the colouring as well. You get the bruising happening rather than just the rouge to make it look like, makeup.
Right.
But no, I totally agree. I like it how he's got that, the scar over his eye, which is very good as well.
Which is the Anakin Skywalker's scar.
Yeah. And it was issue 1 as well. We saw Bushman, I think, do that to him, so that's in good keeping. On sticking with that as well, going back a couple of pages, what I loved was this establishment by Huston and Finch to show Mark getting out of bed, and just the constant creaks and grinds and cracks of his bones and body as he was getting out of bed. It was actually to the point where I'm just thinking, hang on, is that from him or is there something happening outside? but I think it's meant to convey how worn and battered his body is, and I think it's great.
Yeah, at first I was confused too because I didn't know if, obviously, because this is tied into the Civil War, I didn't know if that was like stuff that's going on outside, and he's like, "Fucking hell!" Like because he got woke up. I didn't really put together that. Oh, that's just his body doing that.
Yeah, that's.
And I think it's really hilarious that in like the first panel, there's like 6 different onomatopoeias, and he's just laying there still. It's like what? It's like. If your body's in that bad shape, you're cracking just by sitting still. You got a problem.
He's got a massive problem. Like, he's probably just wiggling his toes, and for each of them are like cracking the other way. But that really does convey how. I just got that sense of how sore he would be and how stiff and stuff. Really good. And again, that's following on from the first arc as well in the bottom, where he's beaten, he's got knees, he's recovering, and he's not in his prime anymore. So yeah, the other bit of the story as well is sticking to kind of the plot. I've just gone back another page, and we're looking at this introduction. We do know I'll actually go back even further. We do know it is Jeff Wilde. Actually, Frenchie reveals that towards the end. We get this figure who's somewhat of a night nurse, it seems, and she's kind of helping him. I love the gore here. Like, he's still kind of insane. Like, he's got, ouchie. Yeah, I can feel that. She's ripped his jaw off, She's doing some work on him. And so he kind of comes across as a terrifying character, much darker than Round Robin. Absolutely, for sure. Nothing's explained as how he got out there. We don't know at this point whether she is I can't remember her name, but in Round Robin, whether she is that cybernetic nurse that helped him. But we get these 2 figures here, and I'd like to point out the reference to Moon Knight, Volume 1, Issues 9 and 10. The hideout where he's at, it's those elevated platforms, Josh, and that really just struck out to me straight away. The Anton Mogart Midnight Man's hideout, which we see in the Mensch run.
Right, yeah, I didn't even pick that up.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch there from Huston and Finch, just a little nod to the original series, because we know Jeff Wilde is the son of Midnight Man. I thought the touch with these clocks was a little unnecessary. Like, sure, he's got this midnight theme happening, but it doesn't really add anything for me. It doesn't really make much sense for me. But I guess it's a good visual.
Yeah, and plus it's like, where does he get like all those clocks at? Like, the only thing I can think of in maybe some listeners will pick up where I'm coming from, but there's there's an episode of SpongeBob where him and Squidward are trying to get to work first, and SpongeBob breaks his clock, and then Squidward just gets another one, and they keep breaking it, and he has just a whole closet full of clocks. Like, that's what I'm assuming that he has for this, and like they're all set to go off at midnight, then he just breaks them every time it goes off.
Yeah, it's pretty well. Maybe he's insane. Maybe that's part of his insanity. You can nitpick this until the cows come home as well. Like, how does he get up there on that platform? That's not very practical, all that sort of stuff. But aesthetically, it's pretty cool. It's good visuals. I like to point out as well, not only Finch, but the inks and the colors here really good. I love the lighting from that den. It comes from the top, and it really does come across. And the detail from Finch, he puts in the bricks and everything. You don't get that much with many artists. I know Greg Smallwood loves detail as well, but it really does pay off here.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because we never really see either of their faces because they're constantly in shadow, or we only see like a bit of their hands or a bit of their arms or a bit of their heads or whatever. So it's just like, well, I'm not really putting any work in the bodies. Maybe I'll put more work in the backgrounds to upset the environment, which I think works.
But it's really, he's really got an eye for like if I can call it like set design. It's great. He's got these loose cables, and it just all adds to that really grimy. I think the wiki called it an underground. I don't think it's underground. I think actually it could be. That's what Anton Mogart's one was. It was near the sewers, right, or the stormwater. this could be the same, but to me it looked like, I don't know, something elevated at the side of a building. But it's good
No,
nevertheless.
I think it's like either inside a building or in some sort of tunnel or something. And I think it is because after reading this, I sort of just paged through the rest because I really didn't remember what happened. But there's a bit where him and that the nurse, they're in like a storm drain.
Oh, okay.
And like you see him like looking out. So I assume that it's connected to the sewers or something like that.
Yeah, to be honest as well, I can't remember too much from this other than there are two scenes that I do remember. One is that torture scene with Moon Knight. We'll get to later down the issues. Very graphic as well. And the other one was where I think they're fighting and Moon Knight chucks some weights at him. And I always thought that was pretty cool because, you know, if anyone that, you know, goes to the gym and stuff, you know, weight's obviously quite heavy. Using that as a throwing weapon, pretty impressive. So those are the small takeaways. But you had another note here, Josh, about the writing in particular?
I just said I just love the goofy Khonshu.
Yep.
And he reminds me of the genie because he's constantly changing, like, what he looks like and stuff.
Yeah.
Because when he first shows up, he's just hold on, let me find the page here. He's just like normal with a glass of wine, and then he has like the cool guy sunglasses on.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
And then the next time you see him, he's in the car, and then he's wearing he has like the press, the press junket on,
with the tie,
and and I just love it and how he's just much more goofy, and I find that really funny. Like it's not like the I guess even more recently, I guess Khonshu can be goofy, but it's different when it's that eyeless bird skull compared to basically sort of just like reminds me of the Red Skull, to be honest. Just something about it is just funny. And then obviously at the very end when Captain America shows up, we see him in the classic Uncle Sam, like the I want you pose. I love it. And I even love, like, not to jump ahead to the next issue, but obviously in the next one, Cap and Mark talk, and throughout their whole talk, like Khonshu is just like, yeah, kill him, yeah, fucking just kill him right now, yeah, fuck him, yeah. It's just like, it's just hilarious. I would love to see Mark talk with all the heroes in the universe, in the Marvel universe, just to hear what Khonshu has to say to him, like in the background. I don't know. Just like, talking to Tony Stark. Yeah, that armor might look pretty slim, but I see you grab an extra donut every meeting. Yeah, I know. Just something like that. Like I think it would just be funny.
Oh no, for sure. And I think Houston. I'm just thinking in the chronology of things. This is a really different take of Khonshu, and you see it carried on with Vengeance of the Moon Knight as well, where he is that kind of literal devil on the shoulder. To me, it reminds me of, I haven't seen the movie in ages, but American Werewolf in London, about his best friend who gets killed by the werewolf, and then his image is kind of like his subconscious as well, the lead actor, and he's kind of gory. He's like, he sees his friend mangled, like it's kind of like Khonshu, and then as the movie goes along, he's slowly decaying and getting worse. I don't know, I just see it here because not Khonshu, Khonshu, because Bushman's face has been ripped off and it's quite gory, but I do like the goofiness of it as well. Like, so if we're going back to that press guy, he's got a microphone as well. You know, he's got the little press hat. It's all pretty funny. But yeah, so I think it is an important note because it is a very Houston-esque trait of the. And then we get later on the Warren Ellis, which is the more remembered now of the bird. The Khonshu skull that's been taken on board, and more recently we've gone back to, well, actually the bird skull is still there in Avengers 33, but we've gone back to, if you look at the annual with Kang, Acts of Evil, and Serpent War, he's become back that statue of Khonshu. They've taken the more classic look to him again. But yeah, I certainly like this as well. So going back, also, you were talking about Captain America. I wanted to talk about the ties now with Civil War. So for those that haven't read it, I mean, we're not going to get into the whole thing about Civil War, but basically heroes versus hero, Registration Act. All you need to know is that Captain America is against it. Spidey is with it. And you see there's a picture here as well where Mark looks at. You can tell Mark's take on it as well. He hasn't actually joined a side yet, but there's this panel there where he's looking. Well, one, he's trying to fix the mooncopter. He can't do it. Samuels comes in saying, "Would you like a tea or something?" Or you know, what would you like to do with these old weapons, which were the Fist of Khonshu weapons? You know, he says, "Pack them up." But then he looks at the papers that he has next to his you know, in his workspace, and it's of like how, you know, terrible crimes are still happening in the city, and it's got a picture of Peter Parker, Registration Act, and he just says, you know, a-holes about it. You can see that he's against it. Like, it seems he's very much against the registration, because that's what I took it as. I mean, would you say the same? Yeah, he's annoyed at the crime still around there, how this Registration Act hasn't improved it in any sense. And but it's interesting because his interaction with Spidey. What did you think of the beginning, the opening of this arc? I thought Spidey was a little out of place here, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, same here, because it's like he doesn't really do anything.
No.
I guess it's just to be like, oh well, maybe he's gonna try to recruit him, but like they don't even really have the conversation, and then he just fucks off. Like that's really It's like, why is he on? I get why he's on the cover. Yeah. But why is he on the cover?
Yeah.
Like, it does nothing for the story. Like after 2 pages, he's done.
Yeah. And for me,
I guess.
Yeah. Sorry.
I lost my train of thought. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'm just thinking, and the Spidey that I know, with the stuff that Moon Knight's doing, like Spidey's just there against the wall watching Moon Knight carve that crescent moon into the guy's forehead. You know, the Spidey I know would be stopping him. He'd probably go up against Moon Knight and would not take any of this. You know, but he's got a lot more of a backseat nature in this, and so for me, it's I don't think Huston's really done Spidey justice here, and with him not doing it justice, it just seems for me more and more, as you say, you know why he's on the front cover. It seems like the only reason he's in here is to have a token and money and token connection, a token connection to the Civil War, you know. But as you say, he doesn't do much, and he doesn't really seem like Spidey to me.
Yeah, because he really just like even like the I guess the opening splash page that has like the title and everything on it. Like, if you look at what Moon Knight's doing, it looks like he just explodes a guy's head. Yeah, and Spider-Man just like just stop. It's like when two people when you're with a friend, or like two friends are together, and one gets into a fight. And they don't just stop, man, just stop. It's not worth it. But they don't physically do anything to break it up. Yeah, that's what this is like. It's like you could easily like web him away. Like at one point, even his spider sense goes off, and he still doesn't really do anything.
He's way stronger than Moon Knight. You know, maybe he's scared of him because Moon Knight is a pretty scary character in the Huston run. But even then, Spidey's faced Venom, he's faced Carnage, you know. I'm sure he can, not to say I want him to take on Moon Knight, but I'm sure he would stop him acting this way, but he doesn't. So maybe it's got something to do with him being unsure about the registration. Who knows? You could really argue the point. Also as well, Captain America, Josh. So we know Captain America is against it. He's one of the resistance, I guess you'd call it. And so he wants to have words with Moon Knight. What did you make of this? Going to, again, for people who haven't read it, going to recruit him, going to slap him on the wrists for his work because he's been doing very serious crime fighting / torture to criminals.
Well, I mean, realistically, we only get one speech bubble from Cap, so the conversation doesn't happen in this one. But I do like how he doesn't call him. He doesn't, call him by his name, or doesn't reference his Moon Knight. He calls him Soldier. Yeah. So obviously that's the angle this is sort of going to go towards, because obviously Captain America is a super soldier, and Mark is obviously a former Marine, and I guess veterans always have like
Yeah.
a different connection than other people, which obviously makes sense.
Yeah.
So I like that. But
I like
I
that as
think
well.
if I do remember correctly, the conversation between them ends with Moon Knight saying "fuck off" or something. If I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, I think he makes a comment about Captain America and Iron Man just getting a room or something. I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember. Yeah. So he seems to be a thorn in both sides, both camps. And he's very much the lone wolf here, Moon Knight. I mean, we know later on as well. We've done the review of the issue 14. I think it's a lot of Looney's favorite issues. That psych evaluation with Moon Knight, and he gets his card. Remember that? But then at the end he just tosses it away. So he really does. I guess sit on the fence for this. He is really more about, I don't care about any of this shit. I just want to hurt bad guys, and he's really on the outer. So yeah. Again, Captain America, that one thing, and you see the next issue. He's in the next issue, just there for a tease, just there to get him, and Civil War tied in with Moon Knight. But yeah. Any comments about the art here, Josh?
Yeah, well, like I said, like the art is good. Obviously, I love Finch's art; it looks real cinematic. But I only just put this thought together as I was reading this. But his faces are real puffy, and it always reminds me of Howard Chaykin's art because he has real puffy faces too.
Okay.
And it always looks so odd to me for some reason.
Yeah.
And I already mentioned that little red spot on Mark's face that drives me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Howard Chaykin's art, so I can't make the comparison. What do you think? There's some comments as well that Finch's art, the faces are a little samey as well. I can see it a little, but it doesn't really deter me that much, to be honest.
I can see where they're coming from.
Not Finch. Frenchie looks quite different, actually. There's a particular look to Frenchie's face. But then
he looks like an actor, but I can't put a name to the actor I think he looks like.
He does, doesn't
maybe
he?
That's what. Yeah, I just can't. He looks like a that guy, like a famous that guy, but I can't think of who.
Yeah. But having said that as well, if you look, I'm looking a bit later here and I like this conversation with Ray and Mark. They're talking about, and that's where it comes out about Jenna's feelings about Mark and stuff. A very, very important conversation because it highlights where their journey, where it's taken them, basically, where Ricky and Ray have gone on from here. But yeah, I can kind of see it there maybe with Ray's face, similarity between Ray's face and Mark's face, slightly. But yeah.
Okay.
But overall, I think I'm really impressed with the art. Just the level of detail, I think, and Danny Miki and Crimelab Studios inks are just, are they the inks? Are just really good. I think they really suit David Finch's art. Just going on further, look, the themes that I put down, the main themes for this story is this reconnect with his support network. So he's slowly getting Ray and getting Frenchie on board. We've seen Crawley in the first arc. We don't see him kind of again. There's a bit more of a distant relationship, it seems, with Mark and Crawley. So he's not featured here. Jenna hates his guts. We saw Marlene in the first arc as well. The relationship is quite tenuous. But yeah, this is really about Mark trying to capture, and it seems like he's got Frenchie on board, which, as I mentioned before, I think is, I don't know, I just wasn't convinced in the setup to get him on board. Maybe I felt Mark needed to do a lot more to try and get Frenchie on board, but as I said, maybe he's very forgiving because he'd been put through the ringer. He constantly tells Mark here, and I've got the page up here, he constantly says, look, over here, he goes, I'm not a soldier anymore, I'm not a mercenary, and your fight, and he says some French stuff, it was never mine, I have had enough of hospitals. And then Mark just says, I know, but Jean-Paul, I need help. And then there's a little shot of him considering it. And then he's in the car, and it's kind of like, okay, you kind of got me, Mark. I'm kind of half willing to help you now. I would have thought the rift was a lot more difficult than that. But I understand Huston might be just wanting to move this along a bit more, try to get them together.
Yeah, I guess because, I mean, I think we would all know that French would jump back on board anyways. Do we really need to stretch it out over 2 or 3 issues? Or do we just want to just get the ball rolling, which I think was the right choice?
Well, actually, I mean, I love Frenchie. I like to see him go in there. But, you know, another surprising thing for me would have been maybe if Frenchie just doesn't, and maybe Mark then takes on board someone else, you know, as the helicopter. But I do love how you get the small bit here. I'll go back to those to that panel where you see Mark trying to fix the mooncopter himself. And what does he say? He goes, "Where does this?" Oh, he goes, "And where the hell is this supposed to go?" He's got no idea, so he needs help. He definitely needs some help. But yeah, other smaller things I mentioned, the same kind of next page, those old weapons, referencing Fist of Khonshu, the older run as well, a little nod there. He's got his little capsules of Moon Knight costumes. I don't know why they're kept in capsules, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's weird, because it looks like they're just a glass. So do they have to lift the dome off to get it, or the doors? Like, it's not really. You can't really see very well, but it's just an odd design.
It is. I mean,
and I do wonder, like, what? Okay, so Sam was like, "Oh, and these as well." And he's asking about the Fist of Khonshu artifacts, and then he says pack them up. But I guess I don't know. I don't remember. Are they moving to a different spot? Because they keep referencing the estate, but I always thought all this shit was in the estate. So.
True, unless he's got like some sort of safe house somewhere, or I don't know. Yeah, it seems like I think the estate is out of the city, right? So I think this is one of his, you know, safe houses in the city, because it looks like where that car is. This state I still have some work to do, so maybe he's got like the Punisher might have some safe houses peppered around. He's got a whole mooncopter there, but you're right. I mean,
a couple of them, like 3 of them actually.
Yeah.
Is the old one's there?
He's got the
like
dodgy old one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's it. That's another nod to the older runs. The really daggy mooncopters are in there as well. But you're right. Actually, he has that, like the moon cave at the bottom of the estate where usually all this is kept. But he apparently has another property here somewhere. So, yeah. And I'm just looking through here. Other than that, characterizations, I think we've gone through. Anything else here, Josh, that you'd like to point out?
Yeah, just a couple things. On the next page, like when you mentioned that Mark is looking at all the Civil War stuff and papers on top and stuff. If you look on the panel underneath, he's walking away. And sticking out from that pile is another paper that says "Another Midnight Killer Victim." So obviously this has been happening for a while, but he just hasn't been noticing it because of all the Civil War stuff going on. So you can really sort of see like where his attention is sort of at, even though he doesn't really take a side. It's sort of showing like just how big this whole conflict in the superhero world is going on.
I mean, that's a good point, because it takes Frenchie actually to remind him or notify him about Midnight towards the end, right? Where is he? So he's there. Frenchie's gotten out of the car, and he says, when you find Wild, be careful. And Mark doesn't even know, like, find who? He's got those clippings, but it just doesn't click. So it's a good point that you're saying that he's quite distracted with Civil War. And Frenchie has to say Wild, Jeffrey, the annoying boy, which is I like it, a nice little nod to, because he was annoying. Actually, I found him a very annoying character. So a little tip of the hat there to the fans, I think. But yeah, the Clock Killer claims the third. So yeah. And then there's not really much to it. It just sets up with Mark, who I'm assuming See, again, that's not his estate. He goes into a rundown apartment again. We're talking about, like, the second last page. And that's where his statue of Khonshu is, because Steve Rogers is there waiting for him.
Okay, you know what? Now that I'm looking closer at that thing. So he's walking the building. The sign of the building says Spectre Galleries. Now,
okay.
I assume because in that Fist of Khonshu run, he was like an art collector or something. So I guess that must have been the building, and I guess that's where he's been staying. So I guess he has his stuff there, and he's moving all of it there back to the estate, I guess.
And that makes sense that the statue's there. I mean, but he does have a statue at his estate. We saw that in the bottom as well. You know, where he's brooding in the mansion, and Khonshu, and we see for the first time Bushman. But yeah, he definitely has another one there because Steve Rogers is standing there. And just in case you didn't know it was Steve Rogers, you can see his chainmail under his military stuff. But interesting as well, just this last page, Netta grabs Mark, Sir, Mr. Grant, so I mean, Mr. Spectre, so yeah, what Netta? You have a visitor. The first thing he thinks of Marlene. So she's obviously not far from his mind. But no, it's not Marlene at all, because they had a bit of a tiff. It's Steve Rogers. So yeah, sets it up for that. Yeah. A good pickup there, Spectre Galleries. That's again another reference. I like how they do nod to the older runs. It's really cool. Let's see, just going through anything else. No.
One thing about Midnight, they make him a fucking horn dog.
yeah. Exactly. He grabs. There's a lot of innuendo as well.
And it's also revealed. It's also revealed that because the reason he's all cyborg is because he got blasted by that like Ray thing from the Secret Empire.
Yeah,
it's like one of those. It's one of those questions where you have like when you have like disfigured characters in fiction. It's like, well, what about the Thing? Is that still functioning or not? And they answer the question here, no, it does not.
Hang on, where's that? What does that?
It says, where the hell is it? Oh, hold on, I gotta find it. Yeah.
He said, I'm going to make sure I can feel every little thing.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. It says, yeah, you know what? You know where I really like some feeling, don't you? And then she says, it wouldn't be professional. Besides, I told you before, there simply isn't enough material remaining.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's so pissed off.
Oh, yeah, you would be. You would be. So, yeah, but he's very, very horny for it. Some gratuitous shots there of a butt shot from... Again, what seems like to be Night Nurse. She has the nurse hat, but she's willing to she's not surprised at his condition at all. She uses ghastly tools on him. She rips his jawbone off. So she's working on him. So I guess we'll find out who she is a bit later on. But sets them up. Yeah, let's see how that goes. I like how Samuel and Netta are here as well. Like, they're not forgotten. Even Netta has a little bit at the end there. But Samuels was featured, and Netta actually, in the first arc, so that's cool. Yeah. If there's nothing else then, Josh, unless you have any other points here?
No, I mean, that's pretty much all the thoughts that I had.
Yeah, me too. Other than final thoughts, again, I'm going back to the splash page. Mooney looking... Finch does a very cool Mooney. I don't know. I like that art. It's obviously... He's ripped to the max. He's a comic book character, so and his clothing skin tight, but yeah, very cool, very dark. Love it. So anyway, I guess with all that discussion and the fact that it is a setup issue, I'll turn it to you to give your final rating. So what would you give this Moon Knight Volume 5, Issue 7, Part 1 of Midnight Sun?
I'm probably gonna go for probably like a 6 out of 10. Like I said, I think it's a good setup, but not really too much happens. I mean, there are some interesting stuff, but it's like I wouldn't give this to someone and be like, oh, here, you want to read Moon Knight? Here, read this one. It'd be like you have to like sort of really be into it, I think, and invested into what's going on. I do like how it illustrates, and this is just a tie into Civil War also. But it is cool to give us Moon Knight's perspective on what he feels about it, because he really just doesn't give a shit, which is how I kind of am in real life. So, but overall, just as it's just a lot of talking and setting up, and not much else going on. So, not bad, but it's just okay. So, Waning Gibbous.
A lower end Waning Gibbous for Looney's keeping score. Look, I tend to agree with you, Josh, as well. As much as I like the Finch run, it's a hard act to following the bottom. I thought that was a really, really strong, tight 6-part, reintroduction to Moon Knight. It really set the stage, and to finish that arc and then to come into this one, have it tied in with Civil War is a hard thing to do. How do you make it interesting? Jeff Wilde is a classic villain, so it's good to have him in there. But this issue very much a setup issue, despite the good art, and there's plenty of dialogue as well. There's a lot of characterizations and getting into the relationships between Mark and a lot of his primary support cast. It didn't really kind of get any sort of adrenaline going when I was reading it, you know what I mean? So you gave it a 6 out of 10. I gave it a 6.5. In that, I would give it a 6. The 0.5 is really because I'm a Moon Knight fan. I mean, I think if anything, as you say, if someone came in cold and weren't a fan but were curious of Moon Knight, I think they wouldn't be too interested in this. But the fact that this is Moon Knight, I get to see Moon Knight, it kind of bumps it up a little, just because, he's in it. But other than that, it's not really a spectacular issue. I can't remember, as I said, too much of what happens later on, Josh, and I'm hoping, despite what you said about it not being a good run that you remembered, I'm hoping that it does kind of get a lot better. As I said, I've only known bits and pieces. I'm looking forward to Miko Sulian's art. I'm a big fan of him. He's a fellow Filipino, a great artist. So I know he does some of the issues. But yeah, I think a lower end Waning Gibbous. I've got the 6.5, so that's about a mid Waning Gibbous. So there you go, Loonies. Check it out by all means. It's if you do like the bottom, it is worthwhile reading the whole Huston run, and it's worthwhile reading all of the runs. Basically, gets into Benson, see what happens with Moon Knight. But if you like, I actually like the Civil War event. It's a huge event. I actually want to reread it all again. And read everything, because they're massive amounts of crossover tie-ins and stuff. I've only got the trade of the core books, but I really want to read all the other associated issues. But yeah, Moon Knight is very much detached from the whole event. So there you go. Well, with that, look, feedback. I didn't really get any discussion thread up there, but by all means, please, I might post one up. After this episode is recorded, please get in your thoughts. Happy to read them out as well, and to see what everyone else thought of this issue. It's an interesting one, but at this time, nothing in our night lines. Josh, a big thanks for coming onto the show again.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking me to come on.
Yeah, it's always fun. I'm gonna leave the video there with the splash page of Moon Knight there, looking like bashing a head or something. It's one of the missed opportunities. He hasn't got his cestus, the spiked knuckles. That would have been really good. Anyway, that's just me.
Oh yeah.
Spectacle. Look, Loonies, just a little reminder. So we are recording on the weekend. So it's the 20th of June. So just a little spectacle, a little reminder that on the 22nd of June, Disney XD will be airing their Maximum Venom. It's Marvel's Spider-Man, the animated series, Season 3, Episode 3. I believe it's titled Vengeance of Venom. It has Moon Knight in there, so we'll see Moon Knight in animated form once again. So for those keen, check out. I believe it's Hulu and Disney XD and stuff. I'm not too sure with the US contingent of where you can find it. But June 22nd, and I just want to mention we do have a watch party, which I'm very keen to host, where we can actually all watch it. I'm going to push that out because I am going back to work in the office as of next week, so I won't be able to sneak in during the week. So I'm going to push it to maybe the 25th, which is the Thursday. So I'll update the events calendar there. Anyone keen, just accept the invitation. And I'll be using 2.7, which I believe is a platform where we can all watch it in sync, which will be pretty fun. But Josh, any interest in seeing? Are you into animated series at all? Or
I'm into the ones from the '90s.
Yeah.
Like the Marvel ones, because I watched all the Spider-Man one, and I rewatched all the Iron Man one.
Nice.
A couple weeks ago. I haven't watched any of this, but I'm gonna I completely forgot about it until I just read it on the prompt sheet here. But I'm gonna make sure I set it to record on the DVR, and I'm gonna watch it then.
Yeah. I think I posted up on Facebook. There's a little preview. You see like 3 seconds Moon Knight, and he looks pretty cool in it. I think he's all white, which is pretty fun. So not the Declan Shalvey version. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. I'm going through the Spider-Man 90s series myself. I'm trying to watch it with Finn. He seems to like Spider-Man. He doesn't get all of it, but it's an excuse for me to watch it as well. So I like it. It's good. The 90s Spider-Man's really cool.
It is. It's awesome. It's one of those things that it's like one of the things, like, whenever I think of like certain heroes, I always think of like a certain continuity and forget everything else about it. And that's one of the things that show does. Like, it's like, it's mainly the continuity is mainly like, your classic like 60s 70s continuity. And I sort of like that, even though at the time when it was airing, that's like all like the Clone Saga shit was going on, but it sort of takes place in that like that golden era Spider-Man I think everyone really thinks of. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like to me, like, when I'm thinking, what do I think of Spider-Man? I think about when he's like, maybe not a teenager, but like maybe 19, 20-year-old, and he's face off against the Sinister Six for the first time, a lot of the origins and stuff. But it's like, but that happened all like 40 years ago. Now he's come up with, he's had his own company and stuff. It's like all like the recent stuff, like, I don't even take part of, and that's one of the things I like about that Spider-Man series. It sort of just takes all like the golden age of his stuff and just amplifies it.
Well, I think that's a seminal period for him, like being in that, because it's funny. Like, I was talking to one of my co-hosts as well, and he's a big Spider-Man fan as well, and he's saying it's so weird how the MCU focuses on Spider-Man in high school, because that was only really in comics. That was only a very small portion. He actually leaves high school, and most of it is the young kind of years after high school and going to college and stuff, and I love that kind of era myself as well. I just read the I just finished reading the again the Cosmic Spidey Adventures. So we're talking about 89, 90, and he's all kind of he's working for the Daily Bugle, but he's he's kind of young 20s.
Right. Yeah, I do wonder, like, it always did kind of weird me out where people were like, he has to be a kid, he has to be in high school, but it's like, realistically, he was in high school for like 30 issues, and that's it. I mean, maybe because more people have got accustomed to the Ultimate Spider-Man, which I've never read, but I assume that more of that is him being younger, so maybe that's why people are more attached to that. But like, if you go back to like the original continuity, he graduates by like issue 35 or something like that. I don't remember, but it's very short. But I don't know, everyone has this obsession of him always being in school. Like,
I think it's also the Stan Lee, the concept of him, like the way he was marketed, as in like a teenager, being awkward and being a nerd at school and all that. So that was the thing. And that was actually what set him apart from a lot of the heroes of that time. He was a younger version. He wasn't like your Reed Richards or your Captain America. So I think that's probably why as well. But yeah, I totally agree. The slightly older versions, yeah, really good.
Hey, but another thing with that too is obviously like as he was writing, that was in what 63 is when it first came out, and then by like 65 or 66 he graduated, because at the time there was no idea of a sliding time scale. It's like, well, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We don't know that this is going to be going on for 40 years from now. Like that's their problem then. Now it's like, well, we've been I've written 2 years worth of stuff. He was 15, now he's 17. He's a senior, he's going to graduate. So I mean, then it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Sense.
Yeah, and they couldn't freeze him. Like, there's only so many. You can have 2 years of him being like, the 1 year. Although these days, that's a drop in the ocean compared to how it is now. So, but yeah. Anyway, Loonies, check it out if you're keen into that. I'll definitely will be as well, and we'll see if we can get that watch party happening. That'll be very exciting. Next phase, episode 152, will be a Waxing Gibbous. And now this segment is new, as mentioned in episode 150. This will be the Other Side of the Moon. And Other Side of the Moon is basically, I wanted to branch it out to anything tangential to Moonlight, in comics, let's cover. So this is what we're going to do next week. It's What If, it's issue 44 from volume 2, What If Venom Had Possessed the Punisher, which sounds pretty cool. Moon Knight apparently has a cameo. I don't know how much of a cameo he's got in it, but he's in there, so that's it's legitimate. So anyway, that'll be a lot of fun. The Other Side of the Moon. I'm not sure. Have you read many What Ifs, Josh, as well?
No, I've only read a couple. I'm trying to remember. I think did someone mention recently on the show that they've read the like one of their favorites was the What If Kraven killed Spider-Man?
Yes, it was on the Isle of Ra with Matt Kona.
Okay.
Yeah.
I read that one. That one was pretty cool.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, because basically, spoiler alert, but basically because, if you've read Kraven's Last Hunt, Kraven, quote unquote, kills Spider-Man, but it's real that he actually just drugged him and buried him alive. But in this case, he actually kills him, and because also in that story where Kraven then dresses up as Spider-Man and is going around and trying to be the superior Spider-Man, but because he goes too far and he's like killing people, whatever, like J. Jonah Jameson then is like, oh, I really hate Spider-Man now. He's even more of a menace, and then it eventually leads to like superheroism being completely outlawed, and like the country just goes to shit because of it.
Oh wow! Yeah. I love What Ifs because they really do take it to the nth, and they make a point of it as well. We pick these extreme examples of what would happen. So yeah, that sounds like fun. I don't believe I've read that. I remember What If Wolverine was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. That was one of the early Rob Liefeld issues. I found that actually back here, and it's a little bit of it's been eaten by I don't know what mice, or so the edges of mine are all kind of like bitten away. But I love What Ifs as well. I think they're pretty cool. Generally a little darker, and this one, Venom had possessed the Punisher. That's carnage, ensuing for sure. So that will be next. Sorry.
It is funny how like all what ifs, it's always like, this thing that happened. What if it happened like 10 times worse? It's never like
I know,
something good where it's like, what if Iron Man used his money to actually help the world more, or something like that. It's always like, what if instead of Uncle Ben dying, what if both Uncle Ben and Aunt May died? It's like, oh, geez. Like,
I know, Look, because the good stuff's just boring, Josh.
Yeah, right.
You gotta...
There are some more interesting ones, like one that like this ties into actually what I'm reading, the Sergeant Fury. But there's one. It's like, what if Sergeant Fury fought World War II in space? It's like,
wow.
That's more of like that's more of a weird but funny one too. I want to track that down. Track that one down and read it.
Yeah, that's a weird one. You're talking about like positive ones. I haven't read it as well, but I think isn't there one like, what if Karen Page lived or something? Again, that could have a sad ending or something. I don't know, but yeah, I think that was one of them. But anyway, there are plenty of them. I think in complete collections there's about 4 volumes coming out, so there's a lot of, and there've been a couple of like volumes runs, so there's plenty. Anyway, so we'll get into that next week. Loonies should be a hoot. Anyway, as always, we are part of Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight, please consider joining. Like the good sir here, Josh, it's a lot of fun as well. You know, you're more than welcome to come onto the show as well, like Josh as well. It's really fun to just chat about Moon Knight, and we all know everyone loves Moon Knight in the group, so it's always a fun time. Again, sponsored by Hello Headphones. If you use the code ITK Moon Knight, you'll get 10% off their online store. And as I alluded to at the top of the show with Josh, Dreamland Comics, if you use the code MOON, you'll get 20% off, Josh. So if that doesn't convince you to go to Illinois, I don't know what will. As mentioned, we're affiliate members of Entertainment Earth. Please use the link to purchase any action figures. We know Moon Knight's got one coming up, a Walgreens exclusive. I don't know if you can pre-order it through there, but if you can, give it a go. That will help the show as well. And finally, similar to episode 150, we're part of the collective. Please just check them out. They're really cool, really fun. If you like your comics, you like Josh or like myself, a lot of varied loves. There's something for at least someone, you know. So we got the stuff, we got like Nexus of All Realities, a Man Thing podcast, which is very cool. We Are Venomaniacs, a Venom podcast, stuff like that. There was also another one on Cloak and Dagger, so even if you liked the first season of Cloak and Dagger, I don't believe the podcast is running now, but you can still catch up their back catalogue. They're very cool. Finally, you can catch us on email at itkmoonknight@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal. We have a website on Libsyn, WordPress, and we're also on Podchaser. All this will be on our show notes. Check us out. If you want to rate us, please do. You can actually rate us through Podchaser as well. That will help us. It'll just help us get out there a bit more. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much, Loonies, for listening. We've gone past the 150 now. Life is sweet. Read more Moon Knight. A big thanks once again, Josh. Josh, you're going to have to tear down that poster behind you.
Oh, well, I'll have to show you this wall over here, though.
Oh, okay. And with that, Loonies, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
See you guys.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.